Good morning. It's October 13th, 2025, and I want to talk today about Donald Trump and recent events in Israel and the Middle East. So let me share my screen. We can get started, and I can give you the astrological perspective on the events of today. This will take just a minute. And let's see, I've got to get rid of some panels so that I can see what I'm doing here. So just bear with me for a minute. Oops. Let's see. Taking a little bit longer than usual. But I think I'm ready to go. So this is called Trump's Triumph in the Middle East, October 13th, 2025. Now, I've known since the beginning of 2025 that some very good things would probably happen to Donald Trump in the latter part of this fall, particularly on this day, October 13th. And the reason I knew that this would be a good day for him is because transiting Jupiter is exactly conjunct his natal Saturn today. His Saturn is conjunct his natal Venus, which rules his 10th house of status in society. And Jupiter is exactly conjunct Saturn. It's moving toward a very exact conjunction with Venus. It's within orb of that conjunction now, and it's getting close to making an exact sextile to his midheaven, and the moon is joining in on this. So that tells us astrologically that this would be a very good time for Donald Trump, and his status and popularity would probably increase. Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion. It's known as the great benefic. And when it impacts us, it often brings an expansion of benefits into our life. And so that is what is happening today. Now, if we look at Israel's chart, we see something similar. Jupiter and the moon are very close to an exact conjunction with Israel's midheaven, and Jupiter is just recently past an exact sextile to Israel's sun. And this is interesting because when Hamas attacked Israel a couple of years ago, transing Uranus was at 23 degrees of Taurus, very strongly conjunct Israel's sun. Uranus has moved on a bit, but now Jupiter is coming into the picture, and it's making a very beneficial sextile to Israel's sun. So today is also very good for Israel and for its status. And if Donald Trump, if the events of today, the release of the hostages by Hamas, the release of a few thousand prisoners by Israel, if these events result in a permanent peace, a permanent changing of the status quo in the Middle East, and if Donald Trump wins the Nobel Prize for his role in bringing this about, then I will be the first to say bravo, well done. On almost everything else, I am diametrically opposed to Donald Trump and almost everything he does. But if this works out, then we should give credit where credit is due. Now, astrologically, however, I would say not all the credit is due to Donald Trump. So let's look at a few other things. On this day, October 13th, we have some very, very beneficial astrological aspects We still have Uranus making a sextile to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is making a sextile to Pluto, which is making a grand trine to Uranus. And Venus over here is making a strong trine to Pluto and to Uranus. So we complete this kite formation. We have this major grand trine here and a minor grand trine here. This is very, very beneficial. It creates a lot of positive energy and harmony. Now, this didn't just pop into existence on this very day. If we go back to the solar eclipse on September 21st, 2025, we had the same kind of beneficial configuration, though this time it was the sun and the moon at 29 degrees Virgo, completing that grand trine. Let me go back one slide. Here you can see Venus at 29 degrees Virgo. So the seed was planted at the solar eclipse on September 21st, 2025. And then today, Venus is activating that eclipse configuration. And actually, this minor grand trine involving Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, this began to form last July. Got stronger in August, and from time to time we have had other planets opposite Saturn and Neptune completing this grand trine and this kite formation. Consequently, I knew this was going to bring in a lot of harmony into the planet, despite other tense situations that are occurring. And a couple of things I've noticed. One is that what we call good, soft or good aspects, like trines and sextiles, they are not as dramatic as the hard or bad aspects, the conjunctions between malefic planets or squares and oppositions between planets. It's the squares and oppositions which tend to grab our attention the most, and the softer aspects tend to often work more in the background. And that means that their impact can be like a gradual rising beneficial tide, but every now and then some more dramatic positive development can break through, such as has been the case with the prisoner hostage exchanges between Israel and Hamas this morning. But again, this configuration, the minor grand trine, began forming and building last July. It's been punctuated occasionally by this completion of the grand trine. This happened at the solar eclipse, and then it was repeated today on October 13th. Now, along with this, before I make that comment, let me point out that one way in which I've seen these beneficial aspects manifesting prior to today, particularly the Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto minor grand trine, is I have seen people opening up more. I have seen people's perspectives expand and grow, and this has resulted in more people, even more Republicans, occasionally standing up to Donald Trump and opposing some of his policies rather than just rubber stamping everything. We have seen this among some Republican members of Congress. We've seen this from some Republican governors, like the governor of Oklahoma, who has stood up and is objecting to the way in which Donald Trump is employing the National Guard within our country. So that has been going on. Sort of a gradual rise of discontent, opposition to some of the harsh policies of the Trump administration as people's minds open up and as they become a little bit more enlightened. Now, along with this, I know that there have been a lot of people, such as myself, who, as these beneficial astrological aspects have been strengthening, people such as me and others have been engaging in more intense meditation, prayer, and visualizing world peace. Many of us have been trying to tune in to these more harmonious energies, surf that wave, and do what we can to create an atmosphere that will foster peace and harmony in this world. So, as I say, if all of this works out well, if this uh, peace plan that is in progress now holds, and if Donald Trump wins next year's Nobel Peace Prize, then I say, Ray, bravo, well done. I'll be very happy if all that happens. But astrologically, I think there are many more people involved. There are astrological configurations involved that are helping to foster this environment in which peace can be achieved. And there are people doing actions and engaging in prayer, meditation, and visualization that hopefully through the connectivity of all things at the quantum level will help spread and bring about a more harmonious future for us all. So I give credit to Trump, but astrologically, I give credit to these configurations and to the more enlightened people who are responding well to them. However, there is a fly in the ointment. If we go back to October 13th, 2025, we see a T-square forming between Jupiter, the Moon, Chiron, and the Sun. And the thing I'm most concerned about is probably the square between Jupiter and Chiron. Now, this could work out in a very beneficial way, and some of what we're seeing today may be the beneficial side of Jupiter and Chiron. As I've said, Jupiter is known as the great benefic. It tends to help things expand and grow and usually makes life easier. The real meaning of Chiron is this. It orbits between Saturn and Uranus, between the planets that are visible to us with the naked eye and those things that are invisible. Chiron at its best is this urge, this drive to transcend the world we see and enter into this larger, more joyous, unseen spiritual world. However, to do that, Chiron often first has to crack our hard shells to let the light in, and that's where the wounding comes about, which then has to be followed by healing and then by transcendence. So if we get the best of both of these planets, then this brings about a much more transcendent view. Harmony and joy. And that is what we want. But when we look at this square historically, particularly when we have Chiron in Aries and Jupiter in Cancer, what we usually see is some kind of conflict between one group, which is trying to achieve recognition for its own dignity and self-worth and its own independence. And on the other hand, with Jupiter in Cancer, there's often another group that is concerned about its own security and protecting its own borders, its own homeland, and consequently, one group winds up trying to control this other group. And that can be what happens here. All of this is strengthened by the fact that the Sun is moving into direct opposition to Chiron. And on this day, October 13th, the Moon is joining in with Jupiter. So the meaning of Jupiter square Chiron, it's being intensified today. And what all this means is it's not over until it's over. What we have achieved is just the first phase of this peace plan that the Trump administration is promoting. We have to get the remaining parts of the peace plan agreed to and details worked out, and that might not be so easy. Now, on October 17th, that is when we have this T-square even stronger, because you can see that Jupiter, Sun, and Chiron are all at 24 degrees of their respective signs. If we move forward about a week to October 23rd, that is when Jupiter will make an exact square to Chiron. Now, we still have a lot of harmonious aspects. As you can see, we've got a grand trine in here and the minor grand trine. And we still have the minor grand trine here and some isolated trines and sextiles. So there are still possibilities here. We had a weak grand trine on the 17th being completed by Venus. So, as I say, there's still a possibility that everything could work out well, but there are probably going to be a lot of difficult details that have to be hammered out and agreed to. And one party is going to have to recognize the dignity and self-worth of the other party, and the other party is going to have to agree to guarantees that will make this party over here, which I identify with Israel, feel secure. Okay. Now, on November 11th, Jupiter is going to turn retrograde. And that means that issues involved with the square between Jupiter and Chiron, they're going to be revisited. You can see we still have the square. It's still within orb. We've gone past the exact square. We also still have our minor grand trine between Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, and a minor grand trine between Jupiter, Uranus, and Saturn, Neptune. This is all good. We still have some good aspects that can help us achieve a lasting peace. Let us hope that that is the case. But with Jupiter moving retrograde, that means that we're going to hit an exact square to Chiron again. That is going to happen on December 21st of 2025. And also on this day, you can see Sun is at 29 degrees Sagittarius, making a very strong square to Neptune at 29 plus degrees of Pisces. Venus is at 25 plus degrees of Sagittarius, making a very strong square to Saturn at 25 plus degrees of Pisces. So the hopes for peace, harmony, and growth they're going to bump up against hard ideological beliefs on this day. It may be very difficult to finish this full plan for peace. I hope that is not the case. I hope we can really change things in the Middle East, but it might take some time. Now, Jupiter is going to stay retrograde until I think probably around March 11th of 2026. And then we'll get another um, exact square between Jupiter and Chiron, I believe, in early summer of 2026. So that is the way things look. Let me stop sharing. And that's where we are. The bottom line today is a very, very good day for Donald Trump and for Israel, both astrologically and in reality. And because it's a good day astrologically, I was able to foresee way back at the beginning of this year that something would probably happen which would boost Trump's status and prestige. I didn't know exactly what would happen. If you try and predict exactly what's going to be 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail because astrology is like a quantum wave function. It gives us probabilities of what might occur, but we don't know exactly which way things are going to break. Free will and other things are also involved. We could also liken astrology to a weather forecast. We have all seen what we call the spaghetti map for the different paths that different models predict a hurricane might take. And we don't know exactly which one of those paths will be the correct one when we first start looking at those models. It's only as we get closer to the event that we can have a clear idea of what might occur. So, anyway, astrology showed long before today that this would be a good time for Donald Trump and a good time for Israel, and that the prestige of both would get a boost. And I sincerely hope this all works out. There is that fly in the ointment, which suggests, at the very least, that there's going to have to be a lot of hard negotiations to complete this process. A lot of hard and difficult negotiations, and each side is going to have to give up something. To make this work, Israel will probably have to give more recognition to the Palestinian people than it's done in the past. And Palestinians, Hamas in particular, are going to have to agree to some security measures for Israel. It's going to be difficult, but there are also still some very harmonious aspects in play. And so it's possible. And at the same time, even though I will give Trump a lot of credit for this win, I also look at the stars and look at what people are doing. And I thank the stars for the harmonious aspects, which have, I believe, have helped create an atmosphere for peace. And I think credit also goes to many, many people around the world who, as I say, are praying for peace, meditating on peace, visualizing world peace, taking actions for peace, and doing everything they can to make this a happier and more harmonious and more pleasant world and reality for all of us to live in. There is plenty for everyone if we just learn to share with one another and to live in peace. And with that, I'll just say so long and be well.